Americans who are very satisfied with their personal life has hit a record low here in the United States, and that's according to a new study by Gallup. And if that sounds bad, well, that number is actually a lot smaller than you might expect. So let's get to the details here. When you get into the numbers, you'll see like how the trend has been going in the United States in recent years. So let's look at this graph. Gallup has been polling Americans on this topic since the year 2001. This year, 44% of Americans stated that they were very satisfied with their personal life, and that's the lowest amount since 2011, when only 46% of Americans reported that they were very satisfied with their personal life. The highest point on this graph is actually in January of 2020, which is kind of surprising. Keep in mind that was before the COVID lockdowns happened. But at that point in time, 65% of Americans reported being very satisfied with their personal life. I'm gonna do a quick break to check in on Cenk. Cenk, are you very satisfied with your personal life?
Look, I'm surprised that the numbers are as high as they are.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm
like, wow, 44% of Americans very satisfied.
Yeah, and 65% were very satisfied in
2020.
Just like 4 or 5 years ago. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because the reason we say that is because we look at polling all the time, and when you ask them political questions, you get back dissatisfied, dissatisfied. You ask them about the media, dissatisfied, dissatisfied, like 80%, 90%. So it goes to show you they're not dissatisfied overall. They just appropriately hate politicians and the media.
Yeah, and look, this is asking them specifically about their personal lives. So that is different from quality of life or how do you feel about Congress, right? I'm sure the numbers would be much lower in that regard.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing about that 65 number before COVID. Look, guys, that was Trump's biggest strength. When I debated about a dozen right-wingers about Trump before the election, their best point was, hey, before COVID, the country was doing great and we all felt great. Now, I thought that was misremembering how people felt at the time. But when you see this poll, you see it's not misremembering. They actually, whether we like it or not, we thought it was fair or not fair. A giant percentage of the country was very satisfied before COVID hit. And that's what they remembered about Trump. Again, fair or not fair. And that's why he had a big advantage in this election, especially as people were dissatisfied going in.
So on the whole though, Americans are still mostly satisfied with their personal lives. Remember, this year, 44% of Americans said that they were very satisfied. Another 37% said they are somewhat satisfied, while 9% said they are somewhat dissatisfied, and 8% said they are very dissatisfied.
I can't believe that only 17% of the country is dissatisfied.
That's
unbelievable.
That's absurd. That is so absurd.
Yeah, well, I mean, great. I'm super happy to hear it, but I'm shocked by it.
But you'd never think it based on the conversations that you hear, the way people talk about their lives, the complaining that has become kind of part and parcel of American discourse. But again, 80% of Americans are very or somewhat satisfied with their personal lives, and only 17% are somewhat dissatisfied. So we're gonna go even deeper though, because there are some really interesting findings from this Gallup study. But first, let's do this. So when you investigate the demographics of which Americans are most satisfied with their personal lives, you find some surprising results, okay? But also some really interesting data points. So let's jump into that. For starters, women are 7% more likely to state that they're very satisfied with their personal lives compared to men. So women are at 48%, men are at 41%.
Interesting.
Yeah, so older American, no, let's stop right there with the women versus men situation. How are women more satisfied with their personal lives than men are? I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm projecting, okay? But I feel like women have like higher standards for satisfaction compared to men.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But men might have more stress depending on, I know everybody's got 2 people at home that work these days, but it's not really everybody. When you look at the stats overall, men still do work a little bit higher percentage, and so that creates more responsibility and more stress. That might have to do with it. So
that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at age groups, right? Older Americans are also more likely to report that they're very satisfied compared to younger counterparts. So between 18 to 29, 41% report that they're very satisfied. Between the ages of 30 to 49, again, 41%. When you get to the ages of 50 to 64, we're talking 47% reporting that they're very satisfied with their personal lives. But once you get to retirement age, 65 and older, 50% report being very satisfied. And you know what? God bless. Like, I feel like that's when you should feel the most satisfaction in your personal life. That's when you should be retired. That's when you should have no serious obligations. Like, I feel like the majority of your life, you're just constantly doing stuff that you have to do but don't want to do.
Yeah, I think that they gotta be skewed by the fact that the question says in your personal life.
Totally.
Because then it feels like if you say you're dissatisfied, you're almost criticizing your family and friends or something. So that's gotta play a role in why these numbers are so huge.
Totally.
Now, having said that, still it's relative, right? So senior citizens are definitely more satisfied than the young. There's a bunch of different reasons for that. Again, a lot of stress for the young these days, harder to make a living these days, harder to get by, harder to buy a house. All those things are true. That leads partly to it. But overall, no matter how you slice it, the fact that 50% of people above the age of 65 in America are, quote, very satisfied is a beautiful number. So I'll take the win.
Yeah. I'm very satisfied in my personal life. I think my personal life is awesome. Like, good group of friends, awesome husband, like love my dog. You know, my parents drive me crazy a little bit, but other than that, I love them and they're still around and I'm super blessed and lucky to have them around. I think like most of the stress comes from work, you know? Like, if someone were to do a survey about how Americans feel about their satisfaction at the workplace, I think the numbers would be more predictable.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I think that of course it depends on the workplace too.
Yeah, and then when it comes to religious people, turns out that they're way satisfied with their personal lives compared to non-religious people. So let's go to graphic 6 here. So apparently Americans who regularly attend religious service are way more satisfied with their personal lives than those who do not. So for those who seldom or never go to religious services, 45% say they're very satisfied. Those who go nearly weekly or monthly, 34% satisfied. But those who go weekly are like 55% of those who go to religious services weekly are very satisfied with their personal lives.
Yeah, I'm not that surprised by these numbers because if you go to church regularly or mosque or temple regularly, you believe in that way of thinking and that gives you great comfort.
And you have a community.
Yeah, and you have a community that supports you, that's right. And you think it's okay, I'm gonna go to heaven, I'm gonna have a great life, I have that hope, and someone is looking out for me. When you buy into that whole philosophy, it's comforting because it's supposed to be comforting.
Totally.
They set it up to be comforting, right? But why then do the people in the middle are the least satisfied?
Yeah, what's up with them?
Because they are not sure about that philosophy but they think they're failing it because they're not going regularly enough, right? So they're caught in between. So do I really believe it? Do I not believe it? If I believe it, I should go more often and I should be more, consistent in my pattern of applying my religion, but I'm not, so I feel guilty about it.
I think the people in the middle who go nearly weekly or monthly are doing so because they're pressured to by other family members.
That's another part of it.
Yeah.
And they're not really sure that it's true, so then that stresses them out more. Whereas the people that think it's not true, they're not as stressed about it because they're like, yeah, I'm not conflicted. I have a consistent worldview. On the other hand, they're not comforted by because they don't have this belief that the creator of the universe is going to look out for them. Right, and has
or that really bad people are going to go to hell. That's what gives me comfort, but I don't believe that. I wish I could. Anyway, final data point from this Gallup study. Let's go to the last graphic here that kind of breaks it down party affiliation wise, because they found that Republicans reported much higher satisfaction 5 years ago at the end of Trump's term than they do today. Republicans who said they are very satisfied in their personal lives fell 43 points from 80% in 2020 to 37% in 2025. By contrast, the share of very satisfied Democrats declined by 5 points from 56% in 2020 to 51% in 2025. And the share of very satisfied independents declined by 13 points from 60% to 47%.
So the independence is the relevant number. That gives you a sense of how people felt politically, and they felt a little more dissatisfied under Biden, and it showed in the election, right? But when it comes to Republican numbers, what I get out of that is that the Republicans care more about politics. So when they get the person they don't like, they think the world is collapsing, et cetera, although we're now seeing that on the Democratic side. But and when Daddy Trump comes back home, they're like, yes! And it like literally affects their personal lives. Be curious to see how the next 4 years are, because I'm seeing a similar reaction from Democrats this time around.
Yeah, I feel like Gallup should have waited a little while and maybe done this survey in the middle of the year as opposed to like the beginning of January, like before Trump is even inaugurated, because I would be shocked if the satisfaction numbers didn't drop even further for Democrats, given who's in charge now.
Yeah. I've never seen Democrats so dissatisfied in my life. I saw somebody, Jennifer Palmieri, talking about how she's one of the classic Democratic establishment people that worked for a lot of these Democratic leaders. She said 2016 was more devastating. That might be true for Democratic insiders, but and I really don't know. But what I'm sensing in what I'm seeing is that this time around was more devastating for Democratic voters. Like I see Democratic voters flipping out like the world is about to end.
No, I totally disagree.
Really?
I mean, you see people online who are distraught, upset. If you ever say anything even remotely fair to Trump, they'll come for you. But there were no pussy hat marches, okay? It's different. I feel like it's a little more muted this time around, like the opposition to Trump, the resistance to Trump.
So I hear you, that's a good point. On the other hand, I was talking to somebody that's not in the political world, and she was telling me that all of her friends are super freaked out. They're like positive that Trump is gonna put them into camps, and they're not political. So they must have been getting that from MSNBC and
Aren't they gonna do
media.
that with the Chinese first?
What's that?
Aren't they gonna do that with the Chinese first?
Okay, the gulags are coming for everyone. But people believe it. They do.
I know, and I hate that people are living in fear. Look, there are things that Trump does and will do that will be terrible, okay? He's not gonna round up Americans and put them in gulags. He's just not. And I hate that politically motivated fear mongering during the election has seeped into the minds of Americans who are now living in fear.
If I thought he was gonna put the Chinese in gulags, my kids are Chinese, my wife is Chinese. There isn't anything I would do to resist that, right? Like there isn't anything I wouldn't do, I should say, to resist that, right? You're not gonna take my kids, are you insane? And I'm Muslim, I mean, we are, in that worldview, we are batter up. Like we are like at the very, very front line, right? Maybe trans people are first and then us, right? But I'm not concerned about anything. Of course, I'm concerned about a lot of different things, right? And we just told you like 3-4 terrible things Trump did in this show. But irrational fear doesn't help anyone. There's no talk, like even Pete Hegseth, who said kill all the Muslims, I haven't heard one peep about camps for Muslims or Chinese people, etc. You don't do that. That's ridiculous. because then you have no credibility. Everybody thinks that you're hysterical clowns. It's crazy talk. Like you don't need that. They just banned transgender people from the military. That's terrible. That's terrible in and of its own right. You don't need gulags for that, for you to be outraged. You should be outraged at that.
Yeah.
Right? So on things they actually do, it's not too much to ask for. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.